The bank manager thought she was preventing a crime when she urgently called the FBI about a quiet black man. But when the agents arrived, they didn't move to arrest him. They stood tall and honored him instead. Darius Cole was never one to draw attention. At 45, he carried himself with steady composure, the kind born from years of discipline and resilience. To most, he looked like an ordinary man going about his day. To the manager, though, he appeared suspicious, and her snap judgment set off a chain of events that would soon turn the entire story upside down. Darius had lived his entire life walking the fine line between invisibility and suspicion. He preferred not to cause a stir, not to give anyone an excuse to treat him as less than who he truly was. His strength came from discipline, his dignity from years of hard work and sacrifice. That morning, he entered the bank with an envelope full of documents and checks, routine, matters that anyone else could have walked in with unquestioned. But as soon as he stepped toward the counter, he noticed the subtle shift in energy. A few eyes turned, a clerk stiffened, and behind the glass partition, the manager's face tightened into a mask of suspicion. She didn't see a customer. She didn't see a man with purpose. All she saw was risk. Her mind painted him as a thief, a fraudster, perhaps even something worse. The fact that he was calm, polite, and carried himself with confidence only deepened her mistrust. In her mind, people like him weren't supposed to carry envelopes with large sums or official-looking documents. So instead of approaching him with professionalism, she picked up the phone and made a call that would soon define her career. Whispering urgently into the receiver, she reported a highly suspicious black male and demanded immediate intervention. She believed she was protecting her bank. In reality, she was about to expose the depths of her own prejudice. As Darius stood quietly, unaware of the drama unfolding behind the scenes, customers began to sense something was wrong. The whispers grew, the air tightened, and every eye seemed fixed on him. What none of them knew was that the FBI would indeed arrive, but not for the reason the manager imagined. 10 minutes later, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the lobby. The glass doors of the bank swung open, and several federal agents entered with purpose. Their sharp suits, earpieces, and the unmistakable air of authority silenced the room instantly. Customers froze in place, employees stopped typing, and even the security guard straightened nervously. The manager stepped forward with a smug kind of relief. She had been waiting for this moment, the validation of her instincts. Gesturing toward Darius, she declared with false confidence, "That's him." Every head turned. The tension was unbearable. Some customers looked shocked, others curious, but many carried the same assumption. If the FBI was here for him, he must have done something wrong. But Darius didn't flinch. He didn't run, didn't protest, didn't even raise his voice. He stood with the same quiet composure he had walked in with, his gaze steady, his breathing calm. Years of discipline had trained him for moments like this. The agents approached swiftly. The crowd expected handcuffs, an arrest, maybe even a takedown. The bank manager folded her arms, ready to watch her catch be dragged away. But what happened next shattered every assumption in the room. Instead of reaching for cuffs, the lead agent stopped in front of Darius, locked eyes with him, and raised his hand, not in aggression but in salute. The entire room gasped. The agents beside him followed suit, saluting Darius with the respect reserved only for heroes. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, confusion colliding with disbelief. The manager's jaw dropped, her face draining of color. And then came the words that ended her career. The agent's voice rang clear. "Colonel Darius Cole, sir. We didn't expect to see you here today." The room fell into stunned silence. Colonel, the same man the manager had labeled a threat, a thief, a fraud, was in fact a decorated military officer. Not just any officer, but a colonel whose service record stretched across decades and continents. The salutes weren't symbolic. They were earned through years of sacrifice, bravery, and leadership. Darius had commanded missions that saved countless lives. He had worked shoulder to shoulder with the very people now standing before him. And here he was, treated as a criminal in his own country, simply because of the color of his skin. The bank lobby, once filled with suspicion and judgment, now brimmed with shame. Customers who had doubted him lowered their eyes. Employees who had whispered fell silent. The manager, red-faced and trembling, looked as if the ground might swallow her whole. Darius remained calm, though inside he felt the sting of familiarity. This was not the first time he had been profiled. Not the first time his achievements and sacrifices had been erased by prejudice. Yet this moment, in front of strangers, carried a weight that pierced deeper than most. The lead FBI agent turned to the manager, his face sharp with disapproval. "You wasted our time. You disrespected a man who has given more to this country than most could ever imagine." His words echoed like a gavel striking down judgment. The crowd began to murmur again, but this time it wasn't suspicion. It was outrage at the manager, at the injustice, at the humiliation Darius had been forced to endure. For the first time, the manager realized the enormity of her mistake. What she thought was vigilance was nothing more than naked prejudice. And now it was on display for everyone to see. Word of the incident spread quickly. Customers left the bank with stories they would tell for weeks. Some spoke of the shame they felt for assuming the worst. Others repeated the image of federal agents saluting a black man whom the manager had tried to disgrace. Within days, the manager faced a storm she couldn't escape. The bank's headquarters received complaints from across the community. Social media amplified the story, painting her as the face of racial bias. Eventually, she was quietly removed from her position. Her career, once built on authority, crumbled under the weight of a single prejudiced decision. As for Darius, he did not gloat. He did not demand apologies or bask in vindication. He collected his documents, nodded respectfully to the agents, and walked out with the same calm composure he had walked in with. Recognized. And so the question remains, how many more Darius Coles walk among us every day, unrecognized, disrespected and underestimated because of the color of their skin? And how many more moments of truth will it take before we finally learn to see people for who they truly are? But his presence lingered in that bank. He left behind a lesson written in silence and shame, a reminder that the assumptions we carry about others can destroy reputations, careers, and even our own humanity. The truth is, heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear ordinary clothes and carry envelopes that others are too quick to question. Sometimes they are forced to endure the humiliation of being seen as less before their worth is finally recognized. And so the question remains, how many more Darius Coles walk among us every day, unrecognized, disrespected and underestimated because of the color of their skin? And how many more moments of truth will it take before we finally learn to see people for who they truly are?